Hello everyone, Simo here. Today I'm going to be constructing the Crosby CR-3 racing plane from Fiddlers Green. It's produced on the larger size on two A4 sheets, one for the wings, lovely blue wings which attracted me to it in the first place, and the other sheet is for the fuselage. If you've got silver paper, it might be worth actually printing out the fuselage on the silver paper. I didn't have any, but actually the printing for the fuselage isn't too bad at all. It does give a good representation of the metal body. I printed this model out on 160 gram paper and then coated it in satin varnish. The model's provided, as with all Fiddlers Green aircraft, with a nice information sheet giving a little potted history and also construction details. The model's got some great rivet details, it looks pretty good, so what I'm going to do is emboss those rivets. I've actually got a little tool for making rivet holes, but I'm not going to do it in this case because the rivets are so prominent. I'm going to do them by hand. I'm going to use a cake decorating tool instead, just to push the rivets in. This will give the model that little extra added detail. Quite a few rivets obviously, so this is going to take me some time. I'll see you on the other side. Of course, I need to also emboss the panel lines. All these little things that you do does give the model the little extra oomph to it and makes it stand out. It's well worth doing. Okay, time to cut out the main parts. This is the cowling. A little tricky, this part. Of course, there's a lot of complex curves in the cowling, so it needs to be glued carefully together. We'll see how that goes later. I'm just rolling out the fuselage here on some sheets of felt, just to give it that curve, make it easier to put together. It's great when you've got the right tools. These are very large tweezers that can reach pretty much any place on the model, so I use it to pretty good effect just to get right in there to press the two parts together. Okay, onto that tricky cowling. I think basically the best way of doing this is to glue all the parts together in the centre and then form them around the model, gluing little bit by bit just to get the right curves. As I thought, it was tricky and it's not perfect, but I can use some filler where there's too many gaps. Here I'm stuffing tissue paper into the body. I do this with pretty much all my models just to give the model, if it's a hollow model, give it a little bit more strength and form. Now this is where I made my first mistake. I'm gluing the fin together at the front, but as you'll see later, there is a problem when I put the tailplane in. I don't know what the colour of the inside of the cockpit was. I'm not sure that anybody actually knows, but I'm painting it a lovely light sea green. And of course the little instrument panel, which I'm gluing to some cardstock to give it some form. Okay, onto the wings, rolling them up as I did with the fuselage. You do not crease the front of the wings, you just form it around a paintbrush to give it a nice curve. And then gluing the back of the wings, and you probably don't see me doing it, but I hold it down just to make sure that it glues straight and level. You know, doing the same with the tailplane. It looks pretty, actually the construction is pretty much the same as the wing. Here I am cutting out the fuselage where the tailplane is to go. I'm going to use a cocktail stick to just put inside the tailplane just to give it some form and strength. Okay, as I put the tailplane in, I see that it's not in line with the fin, and I can't do anything about that apart from take the fin apart and re-glue it. As you can see in the bottom right hand corner, there's a little potted history of the CR-3, which it might be worth you having a look if you're interested. So I'm going to have to cut the fin apart again very, very carefully with a very sharp razor blade. I don't want to get any blood on the fuselage. Okay, while that's setting, I'm putting some more tissue paper into the back of the fuselage. There goes the seat. Okay, I'm going to glue the tips of the wings, and I'm going to stuff the wings with tissue paper again. It doesn't have to be anything more difficult than that, really. Just stuff little bits of tissue paper in there, and it gives a good form and strength to the wing. Of course, I'm going to have to make sure that there's a dihedral on the wing, so I lift up one edge of the wing and then put some weights in the centre just to get that little angle on the wing. When that's dry, more tissue paper stuffed into the middle. And there we go, it's the finished wing. So let's fix this fin, shall we? That's just a little bit of foam board just to give it some form and strength. Then glue the fin together at the front again. And this time I'm making sure that the fin has a nice 90-degree angle with the tailplane. The seat, of course, has got to have a cushion to make the pilot comfortable. So this is just some foam board, just some spare foam board that I've got, and just cut it out a little cushion and then just paint it brown to represent leather. A nice little cushion for his head. I think that's a pretty good representation. Of course, resetting the fin means there's a little bit of extra flash there to cut off. I need to make sure that the body in this section is good and strong, so I put in some formers, I made out some spare card, and then stuff the spaces with tissue paper again. Good, it's time to put the wings on. There's a lot of fiddling about here just to make sure that they do actually fit correctly. And just put some glue on there, a little bit at a time, just to get it in the right place. And there we go, just use a tool just to push that down onto the super glue. Don't want to use my fingers, and stick them together again. Why is it the super glue always manages to glue your fingers together far better than it does the material? A little bit of detailing just to get rid of this extra panel line which shouldn't be there. So onto the prop and spinner. Now I made the prop and spinner in little sections throughout making this video, and I've put them all together here because it makes more sense. So I've rolled the spinner and glued the edge together. And what I've done there is stuffed it with tissue paper to give it form, and then glued the front of the spinner down onto the tissue paper, and that gives it a little bit more resilience, and you're able to push the front of the spinner down and make it into the correct shape. It's not perfect by any means, but you'll see in a minute how I managed to get rid of those lines with some filler. The back of the spinner, of course, needs a disc gluing onto it. So here's the dried spinner, and what I'm going to do just to get rid of those lines on it by putting some filler onto it and then coating it with some PVA and just letting the whole thing dry. Onto the propeller. To cut these out very, very carefully. Now you glue these props together, but it makes it look pretty flat, and propellers do have some thickness in the middle. So what I'm going to do is just I've got this sheet of foam, thin foam, which I'm going to put in the middle of the propeller just to give it some form. Could of course use some cardboard, just the same effect, but I think the foam just gives it some springiness. And when that's dried, it's just glued to the back of the spinner. And some more detailing just to get rid of the cut lines. Little scratch built joystick. Windscreen is quite simple. You just cut it out, and what I'm going to do is paint the inside of the windscreen, because of course it can be seen. We're all done, pretty good. I'm just going to coat the windscreen a couple of coats of gloss varnish just to make it as shiny as I can. Now the exhaust of course is flat on the model, but if you look at the real aircraft, they just protrude off the fuselage. So what I'm going to do is roll up a piece of paper, paint it black, and then cut little rings that I can glue onto the fuselage to represent the exhaust. Of course I only need 6, but I did quite a few to try and get the same size pieces of exhaust. And they're quite simple, just glue them onto the outside and paint the edges black. And I think it looks pretty good. All these little details make the model pop out. It's well worth doing. There we go, finished exhaust. It looks pretty good. This is the fuel vent pipe made from a bent paperclip. Get onto the wheels. Now this is quite simple really. The undercarriage doors are just basically just flat pieces of paper that you glue together. I'm going to have to glue those onto some cardstock just to give it make it a little bit thicker and make it more realistic. The tyres themselves are of course the usual Fiddlers Green hollow box construction, but I don't like that construction, so what I'll do is just build them up with pieces of card to the correct thickness. From my calculations, I think it's probably about 3 pieces of card just glued together, just to make the one wheel. Now these wheels are normally just glued onto the wing, but to make it a little bit stronger, I'm using a cocktail stick so that I can poke that into the wing and just hold it with some super glue, and that should make it much stronger. As you can see here, what I've done is painted out the wheels that were printed onto the wing, so it looks like the empty wheel bay. And I'm also adding an extra cocktail stick there just to represent the undercarriage retractor, and that'll give it extra strength. Final bit, of course, is the tail skid, just made out of a broken cocktail stick. There we go, final detailing. Just little bits of painting that I've missed, just to make sure the aircraft pops out and looks good. And of course the matte spinner has to be coated with some satin varnish to match with the rest of the aircraft. And I think that's pretty much it for the aircraft. It all looks pretty good. I'm pleased with it. Of course, there's one more thing I have to make, which is the designer and pilot, Harry Crosby. As you can see, there's a picture of him leaning against the wing of the aircraft, and it's going to be quite simple just to cut that out and do the same for this aircraft. Just stick it on a bit of card, let it set, cut it out, and then just lean him against the aircraft. There we go. So that's my completed model of the Crosby CR-3. I hope you've enjoyed this little construction video. I've certainly liked this little airplane. It's great, and thank you very much to Fiddlers Green for giving that to us. If you want to see more of this type of video, then please subscribe and comment on the videos. I love to hear what you say about them. And with that, I'll see you all very, very soon. Bye bye.